So welcome to today's Connect Nebraska Digital Opportunities Planning Spotlight and Planning Update. Okay, and is it letting me? Oh. So today we are, during our webinar, we'll start with a welcome and overview, and then we'll have a spotlight of 6 great Nebraska programs that are addressing digital equity. And then we'll give an update on the State Digital Equity Planning Grant. And hopefully we'll have time for questions. Please put your questions in the chat. And if we don't have time to answer them during the presentation, we'll make sure to email them, or questions of general interest will be answered in an FAQ. So we're going to jump into the overview. Broadband connectivity is necessary along with a skilled workforce in order to grow our economy. So Deloitte and other researchers have found that there are 3 measures of broadband deployment and utilization that lead to economic development and growth. The first is increased broadband penetration and subscription. So, and that's really what we're going to be focusing on today, is the use of technology and that people are actually subscribing and using it, along with greater broadband availability and greater penetration of higher speed broadband. And the state will be receiving 2 federal grants that will provide funding for broadband deployment, and we will be coordinating with those grants also. So, it's easy to see the importance of technology and broadband in Omaha and Lincoln, where there are lots of startups and big technology companies. But broadband is also important to Nebraska's rural economy and for agriculture. Fully adopting next generation precision agriculture technologies in the United States would result in potential annual gross benefits of up to $13 billion for row crops and $20.6 billion for livestock and dairy. 51% of Nebraska farmers and ranchers use precision agriculture practices to manage crops or livestock, making Nebraska number 4 in the use of precision agriculture technologies. And we expect the number of farmers and ranchers using these technologies to grow. Connectivity is also important for Nebraskans. Nebraskans need connectivity, a device, and the skills to use technologies in order to participate in our increasingly digital economy and society. But being digital connected is also associated with better health outcomes, and especially as more providers are using online scheduling, viewing of lab results, and even telehealth consultations and home health monitoring. And there was one study that found that areas lacking broadband access had a higher death rate from COVID-19. So 90% of Nebraska households and 85% of Nebraska farms and ranchers currently have an internet subscription. But internet subscription rates vary by county, from a high of 95% in Sarpy County to a low of 71% in Sioux County. Older adults and those with lower incomes are also less likely to be connected. 27% of Nebraskans aged 65 and older, and 37% of Nebraska households with household income of less than $20,000 do not have an internet connection at home. Internet subscriptions also vary by race and ethnicity, with American, Indian, and Alaska Natives and Black or African American Natives having the lowest subscription rates in Nebraska. Connectivity is also important for community anchor institutions. Most often, those are considered to be schools, hospitals, and libraries. But in some communities, other sites Possibly senior centers, VFWs, and churches may also serve as community anchor institutions when we're talking about addressing digital equity needs. However, only 15% of Nebraska libraries have internet service of 100 megabits per second or greater. So this can be a real barrier for those who are who live in very small communities or in rural areas, and their local library does not have very good access. As the state is developing a state digital equity plan, our approach includes learning together. So that's why today we're focusing 6 efforts across Nebraska to address digital equity. I'm excited to learn from them, and I'm happy that you were here, that everyone here will get to learn from them. Also this week I had the pleasure of going out to Winnebago and got to learn about their challenges and also some of the great programs that they are putting in place and their plans for using funding they received from NTIA to build out broadband within their community. We'll also be working to build partnerships and to recognize and build upon successful efforts. So now we're going to get into our Nebraska Spotlight. We have 6 speakers: Angela McGraw from DoSpace, Joyce Stevenson from the Crete Public Library, Jessica Chamberlain from the Norfolk Public Library, Cicely Douglas from the South Sioux City Public Library, Joy Keene from the Ravenna Public Library, and Kathy Najar from the EduTech program at the Center for People in Need. So I will be turning it over to Angela. I'm trying to not share my screen. So Angela.
Thank you, Anne. Again, my name is Angela. I am the director of DoSpace. DoSpace is a technology library in Omaha. And I'm here to give you a brief overview of our TechPack program. Now, our TechPack program was created as a means to support digital equity in Omaha. And the pandemic really uncovered the disparities between those who have access to technology and those who don't. And then it also revealed the impacts of that. And so after the pandemic, we asked ourselves the question, how can we increase access to technology in a way that the community needs it the most? And what we found is that in addition to tech access in our building, the community really needed access to technology in their homes. And so in order for us to offer something like that, we needed a large sum of money to support our goal. And we were awarded $750,000 in grant funds to support our TechPack program. And this particular program allowed us to distribute laptops and Wi-Fi hotspots to 945 Omaha residents who needed the most. TechPack participants also received 1 year of free Wi-Fi internet access beginning June of this year, running until June of next year. And the one thing that I do want to emphasize in regards to the TechPack program is that this isn't a loaner program. Participants are able to keep their laptops. And in addition to providing access to technology, one of our goals with the TechPack program was to increase digital literacy. And, we just wanted to make sure that these TechPack participants were a little bit more tech savvy at the end of the program than they were at the beginning. And so in addition to access, we're also providing those participants with free computer basics training and free one-on-one technology tutoring. Another goal of this TechPack program is for us to be able to create the first digital equity report for the city of Omaha. And so all of our TechPack participants are required to take a total of 4 surveys. We're working with UNO to create those surveys, analyze the data, and the data collected from this program will enable us to create that digital equity report. And the goal of this report is to raise awareness of the local challenges and highlight success stories. And in addition to that, we know that those who have access to tech should experience an increase in economic and social capital. And so this report will also help us to measure gains in those areas. And the last thing that I want to highlight in regards to the TechPack program, DoSpace, we are a small organization. We have under 20 employees here. And in order for us to be able to distribute 945 laptops to the Omaha community within a matter of months, we partnered with a number of nonprofits to ensure that these laptops were going to the folks that need them the most. Thank you.
Okay, well, thank you, Angela. And I'm gonna switch back to sharing my screen. And we'll be moving on to Joy Stevenson with the Crete Public Library. And Joy, I'll just advance your slides, so let me know when you want me to advance them.
All right. Can everybody hear me okay? Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Yes. Sorry,
Yes.
I didn't hear anything. Okay. So we were very fortunate here in Crete, and we were able to build a brand new library from the ground up. But that was the good news. The bad news is that we had to close 6 weeks after we opened due to COVID. And because of COVID, we found out that our outdoor space became a real asset for us. What you're looking at here is an outdoor space that we call the Children's Reading Garden. And it's kind of off the children's area. And we have held meetings out there as well during COVID time. So next slide, please, Anne. So we were fortunate that we had a whole city block, plus a third of a block. So the third of the block is our parking. So the rest of the city block, we're able to have what we call a library park. And so here you can see some of the seating areas as well as the story walk. Next slide. So using ARPA money, I purchased 4 umbrellas. One is here on the south side. We have 3 outdoor spaces plus or 3 tables, 1 ADA with a park bench, and we also have electrical outlets that people can plug into. And then next slide, in what we call the Pinnacle Pavilion is where I have the other 3 umbrellas there. Again, 2 are ADA compliant, and those, so we put the umbrellas up when we open, we close at, we close it when we close. We haven't had winter yet, but we will be taking them away during the winter time. So, and next slide, please. The other outdoor space is, we had a generous patron who built, the Kraus family built this pavilion, and with the rest of my ARPA money, I used it to purchase 2 picnic tables, one which is ADA compliant. We have bollards out there that have electrical outlets if need be. So that's it. That's it for our outdoor space. The I think one more slide. I don't quite know. No, we never shut off our internet. So 24/7, we have internet capability. We also have the login that is facing out on our doors. So people can use and they do use our Wi-Fi 24 hours a day. And now we have a lot more places to sit outside. Unfortunately, the speed isn't as great as we wanted. It's only about 20 to 25 Mbps. So we're looking at getting some fiber laid, so we should be able to have faster Wi-Fi. Right now, it really hasn't been a problem. If we got 20 teachers in here and they had 20 laptops and 20 phones with the other patrons, then we had a problem. But so far, other than that, we seem to be doing okay. And the last thing is our Tech Tuesdays. We are just now offering one-on-one sessions, and I'm very curious to learn what these other libraries are offering and have had more of a track record than we have. And that's it for me.
Well, thank you. That was a great presentation. And now we will be moving on to Jessica Chamberlain, the Norfolk Public Library.
Thank you. I just want to say just a brief thing about digital equity and public libraries, and that it is so at the heart of our mission to provide that digital equity, to bridge that digital divide that we know is in our communities. It's been wonderful to see all the investment that the state has been making in broadband and rural broadband, and all of that is wonderful. So we're thrilled to see all of those things moving forward. But we know there's always gaps and there's always ways that we can fill in and try to help that situation. So we do have one program, as you see on the slide here. We do check out Wi-Fi hotspots at our library. We do have 40 altogether. Patrons can borrow them for 3 weeks at a time, and they're powered by the Verizon network. We work with their government program to get pricing and deals on the cost of the hotspots themselves. So patrons borrow them for 3 weeks. When they return them, we check them, make sure they're all in good working order, and then we just pass them on to the next person. Often what we find is that the person returns it and says, can you put my name back on the list? So as soon as they bring it back, they are waiting and anxious to get it again. This is certainly not a long-term solution. It's not, it's not a substitute for having that good broadband in your home, but it's a great temporary, fill in for that gap for someone who's either just moved and doesn't have the internet yet, or those low income folks that, can't afford it, and at least they're getting it for a small amount of time at home. So we realize it doesn't fill all needs, but it is certainly helpful for the people that are able to use it. And they are always checked out all the time. So next slide. The other thing we offer is what we call tech tutoring. This is for people who need some help with some aspect of digital literacy or technology use. We do book appointments with people, so it's a personalized schedule. We have a couple of options for them, like does this night work, does that night work, when we know that we have staff available. But if that doesn't work, we say what time does work for you, and then we make it work with their schedule. And then we target a specific task or skill that they want to use. Or that they want to learn. It could be something like, how do I use the folders in my email? Or how do I set up an email? Or my kids got me this Kindle Fire for Christmas and I don't know how to use it. What do I do? So it could be a wide array of things. On the form, we just kind of ask them some basic questions like, hey, what are you looking for help with? So that we know if it's not something we're super familiar with, that we can take time to learn about that. But we have found this has been really helpful. We do also offer computer classes on a regular basis, and we get people requesting certain topics, hey, would you do a class on, writing a Christmas letter in Word, or would you do a class on this? But what we find is when we offer those classes, we don't always get a huge turnout. So we know that there's a couple barriers, and, timing just being one of them, that maybe we have the class they wanted, but was not at a time they could attend. So this helps remove that barrier. But we also know there's still some stigma attached to people who don't have the tech skills they think they should have, or they're embarrassed that there's something that they don't know how to do that they feel that they should. And so they don't want to come to a class, and be in kind of a public setting saying, hey, I need help with this. So offering that tutoring privately and one-on-one helps remove that barrier for people as well. So that it's just a casual, hey, we'll help you set this up, no problem. And that's been really successful. So we're always evolving the program, trying to find things that work better for folks. So it's something we're getting more staff on board with, being able to provide this tutoring so that we can offer it at more times for people. So that's it for me.
Okay, thank you, Jessica. And now we're going to move on to Cicely Douglas with the South Sioux City Public Library.
I forgot I muted myself. Good morning. So the South Sioux City Public Library, we're service to roughly about 12,000 individuals, and largely made up of what I refer to as long-term residents, which includes our Native population, as well as a large white population that's been here for a very long time. But we're also home to several immigrant families and immigrant groups from Mexico, Somalia, and most recently Afghanistan, as well as their families and children. And so this community has 4 main spoken languages: English, Spanish, Somali, and Pashto. And so when I started here at the very tail end of 2019, right before COVID, I was able to see, so, the disparities in this community as it applies to access to digital and technology. And so we were immediately able to have several initiatives started. We put external Wi-Fi in the parking lot so people could have access to it 24/7 when the library is closed. We also started a program called Tea and Tech, which we bring you tea, we have snacks available, and we can just discuss your computer issues with you, or how to access your TV. And then last year we received ARPA funds, and we used it to build a makerspace and to upgrade our computer access in the library. So by providing hands-on technology experience and introducing emerging technology to the community, our makerspace is popular amongst our long-term community members, as well as young people. We do find its purpose is a little bit lost on our newer community members, simply because with immigrant communities, more basic needs are kind of at the helm of their everyday. And so since basic needs do take the priority, they love our button machine, they love to see we have sewing machines and embroidery machines, but the emerging technology aspect of it goes a little bit lost, because right now it's learning how to pay your bills online and more everyday issues. So we recently received an incentive, a grant for $7,000 to create lessons, digital literacy workshops for our community members. And it is through the Public Library Association and AT&T. They have updated digitallearn.org, and this is great because it has lesson plans in English as well as in Spanish, and designing programs through this will help us close the digital divide. It will definitely take away the fear that people have when operating a computer or operating technology, and we can offer our instruction in various languages. So we're going to use that money to hire instructors to create lesson plans in Pashto and in Somali, as well as make some videos that we can post on Niche Academy, YouTube, and make sure those are shared as publicly as we can. So that way we'll be able to have every individual's needs met as best we can. And so right now we started our lessons in Spanish, which are going pretty well, but we're also in the process of surveying our community. So we're taking time to reach out to community leaders and get an idea about where people need to be met. And so we do intend to provide several computer classes, including Microsoft Word, Microsoft Excel, all of those, and that's on the next slide. We're also looking at offering some other classes. We're finding that with our East African community and our new Afghan community, computer basics, internet basics, and online safety appear to be what's most needed. So just according to what we found so far, we'll begin offering those computer classes as soon as we possibly can, as well as online baking and maybe even how the cloud works, because we do find a lot of people don't quite understand if their phone is damaged and they have to replace their phone. They think they have to create a new email and create new accounts, and that's not how it is. So, and then we have other opportunities that we're looking at providing in the near future, I would say within the next year. And that includes laptop lending, hotspots, which I have several on my desk that I'm working on figuring out how we can make our lending work for our community, as well as lendable computers for our community members as well.
Okay, well, thank you very much, Cicely. And now we're going to move on to Joy King at the Ravenna Public Library.
Oh, I was trying to get my video to start. There we go. Okay. So in Ravenna, we participated with the Nebraska Library Commission Mobile Makerspace grant that they had offered, and they started it in 2018. We had just built our library and opened in August of 2018. So this was kind of one of those things that we didn't really plan for when we designed our building. So our makerspace is actually just kind of out in the middle, well, along the walls in our adult library section. So how we started our makerspace is that there was a group of individuals in the community that were very interested after that mobile makerspace had left our building of continuing with that digital learning, technology learning within our community, of those things that aren't offered to small rural communities like ours. We have a population of 1,360 people, so very small and very rural. So they actually donated in December of 2019 the laser, $16,000 for our laser, and that's how we started. I was able to use those funds as matching funds to get a grant through the Kreutz Bennett Foundation. And we received an additional $10,000 from them and our $10,000 matching from our friends of the library. So we were able to purchase the computers, the programs, everything that we needed to run this amazing technology. So we have an Epilog laser, a Graphtec vinyl cutter, a heat press. We also have a mug and plate heat press. We were donated 2 Snap-on tool chests from Snap-on. And then we have a sublimation ink printer. And then just recently, we were able to raise money last December for a 3D printer. Okay, next slide. So there's a few of those items that we have. The Graphtec vinyl cutter and one of the heat presses that we have, because we do have 2 heat presses, were actually donated from our Chamber of Commerce, just because they're so, the Chamber and our economic development are very on board with the library providing this kind of technology for entrepreneurs within our community and getting this kind of technology into the hands of people who don't normally get to experience this kind of technology. Okay, next slide, please. So when we started our makerspace, we had people in the community say, hey, I have stuff that I want to donate too. So Kay Rip, she was the president of the Ann of Arc Quilt Guild here in town, and she passed away, and her children decided that they wanted to donate all of her quilting books, her sewing machine, her serger, her iron board, her iron, and over 100 of her quilt books for us. And then they also donated $1,500 worth of memorial money to purchase an AccuQuilt cutter, which we have the automatic one that doesn't have to be hand cranked because of our older generation who is utilizing this kind of equipment. So if they have arthritis or anything, they can just push a button and all of their quilting pieces are cut out automatically. Okay, next slide, please. So there's some of those items that I discussed or showed. And we also, so what recently in the last 2 months, we have been having two different quilting groups actually come and utilize the library. So we have about 13 ladies that come once or twice a month on Fridays. And then we have a group that comes once or twice a month on Monday evenings and utilize our community room. And then we just bring all of our quilting equipment into that community room for them to utilize. They're using that equipment to make quilts of valor for our veterans. So just all these kinds of community connections with being able to have hands-on accessibility to this technology. Okay, go ahead and you can switch slides. So like I said earlier, we have this wonderful connection with the University of Lincoln, the Innovation Studios. One of the creators and driving forces behind the Innovation Studios was actually born and raised here in Urbana. So he told us he would help us whenever we got on board to building a makerspace. And because of his connections, we were able to receive over $8,000 worth of Snap-on tools and tool chest. Okay, you can go ahead, forward the slide. It has more of a picture of all those tools that are in that. So we actually loan those out. People can come and check out any of those tools. Okay, next slide. And then we also have additional makerspace items, those popular ones. We have cross stitch supplies. We have 2 different button makers. We just purchased a 3-inch button maker on top of that 2.25-inch one. We have quilling, we have a camera, we have makey, we have Arduino boards, we have green screens, we have all this fun technology, and just trying to build those entrepreneurs in our small rural community. And then also, once again, getting that digital literacy out there of how to utilize these this amazing technology. Okay, and I think that's everything. Oh, one more. So yeah, those are some of the creations that the kids have made, our patrons have made. In that upper right-hand corner, we actually partnered with our elementary school. Our high ability learners came down here after school and they learned how to use the vinyl cutter. And so they were just making, so we have making some names for their rooms. So yeah, that whole digital technology, not only for our older patrons, but also our young new learners also. Okay, I think that is it. Yep. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you very much, Joy. And now we're going to move on to Kathy Nasher with the Center for People in Need.
Hi, why don't you just skip to slide number 3, please? I always have way too many slides. So there we go. Well, our basic problem is we have so many jobs open in the Lincoln area that are tech related and just generally in Nebraska that we applied for an ARPA grant and we received one. And what we do is we share Google certificates for, we give them away essentially, and we have other services associated with that. And these certificates are provide introductory level skills, beginning level skills for a workforce. So slide 2. Sorry, next slide. So 4th slide. I am so sorry. Anyway, this is the population that we serve, not just for my program, but for everybody. We have 2 levels, 3 levels of ELL classes. We have a citizenship program. We would very much like to develop, adult basic education and GED programming, based on funding. I personally would love to have a coding lab, but what I do have is a 24-seat computer lab. And this is the population we serve right now. I have 25 active students. One person has actually finished in just 8 weeks. She's got a Google IT support certificate, and she is already in the workforce doing something else. And this is pretty representative. Actually, about half of the people in my program are immigrants, and that's about right with the Lincoln community. We have per capita one of the largest refugee populations in the US, and we're working a lot on reskilling. Right now, one of my students is a Ukrainian refugee. She's not legally eligible to work yet, but she's working on scaling up for when that does happen. Okay, next slide. anyway, these are Google scholarships. So Grow with Google. Google gives them away free. What the ARPA grant does is pay me, and it pays for wraparound support services. So all we ask is the students devote 10 hours a week. I find that's kind of a high goal for a lot of them because most of them are already working another job. We have also focused on female families that are headed by female workers. And so that's obviously a barrier. The self-paced nature is really difficult online. You know, it's very hard to sit in your jammies in the middle of the night by yourself and you're trying to learn this thing. So that's one of my jobs too. I do have the ability to track what they do on Coursera, which is the Google platform for this, and say, oh, gee, you know, you haven't been online in 5 days. Is there a problem? Might be one updating me on this. But we are seeking partnerships right now. We are basically sponsored by Spectrum and Allo. We're working a lot with Southeast Community College, and we're working on developing a partnership with Doan. Next slide, please. These are the classes. So if the Google IT support class, for example, was 5 classes, I did the project management one because I wanted to see what was going on. And that took me about 6 weeks. And I have a master's degree in that area. It was not easy. It was fairly rigorous. And these are very fast moving classes. The UX design seems to be the slowest moving population, but that's because there's so much creativity involved in what they do. Next slide. Okay, this is important. Google says for their hiring purposes, and we do have a Google mothership of sorts in Omaha, they are treating these certificates as degrees. And when students get to the last class in their program, they will have access to that hiring consortium, which is a national thing. Now, the American Council on Education says that these classes collectively are worth between 9 and 12 university college credits. And Google has partnerships with higher education institutions across the USA. So then when they get done, they also have access to Big Interview. They say that 75%, this is Google's research, not mine. They say that 75% of certificate holders see a bump in their career and or salary within a year. So we shall see how that works. We're not able to track that yet. You know, as I said, I've only got 1 graduate so far. Next slide. Anyway, this is a really good program because there is no cost to employers for training these people. And then after that, the employer on the next slide can also apply to the Department of Labor for subsidized workforce development training. Oh, next slide. Sorry. There we go. Yeah, employers can be reimbursed for further training once they make that hire. So that's what we do. In addition, the Google programming allows us to provide basic computer training support. So I have a lot of one-on-one experiences in my lab. That is the dark window behind me, is the computer lab. And so we have a lot of people, especially immigrants, but also just other people who haven't gotten around to having an email. And so we've helped them set up email accounts and learn how to use the internet. And again, you know, how to keep your life secure while you're doing that. Being a good citizen is partly being informed and being online and knowing how to do things. So we have dreams. We have a huge capacity. We have an enormous building that we're trying to fill right now. But in the meantime, it's as a new program, it's been a real interesting journey to see how people are learning and where their talents are. But there is considerable interest in the community. And we will have 100 scholarships this year distributed. We'll have at least 100 more in the next 2 years each. And then we'll see what happens after that. So any questions? I'm ready.
Okay, well, thank you very much, Kathy. There are a few questions here for the presenters. So let's take just a couple minutes to ask some questions. From Tom Bliss, there's a question to Angela about how did you find your participants?
Yeah, so my response to that is with this particular program, our Tech Pack program, it's a unique program. It's something that no organization here in Omaha had offered. And so we were fortunate enough to have the 3 major news stations here in Omaha pick up those stories, and they ran them a few times on their stations. And so that way we were able to cast a broad net and let a majority of Omahans know about this particular program. From there, folks who were interested in the Tech Pack program had to complete an application.
Okay, thank you. And then, let's see. There was a question from Carla Kimball about setting up tech tutoring programs, and Angela, you answered it in the question and answer, but I wonder if maybe Jessica, if you wanted to respond to that too. What's the first step in setting up a tech tutoring program?
Yeah, I was just seeing that. And I agree with Angela's response that the first step is really figuring out, staffing wise, how are you going to handle this? And I know some libraries set aside time, like what Joy's doing in Crete, where we're going to do tech tutoring at this time. It's Tech Tuesday or, whatever. And that certainly works for some places. That is initially how we started, was with just one time a week where it was like, make an appointment, but this is when we're going to do them. So we found over time that time we were having people say, oh, but I can't make it at that time. And so we were already working with them to meet with them at a different time. So we just decided to open it up. So yeah, I think, just seeing with your staffing and who's comfortable giving that tutoring, what works for their schedule. And if you want to do drop-in times or, schedule an appointment, we have appointment scheduling software, but that was we realized that was silly because, the people looking for this tech help are probably not super comfortable using this appointment software. So we went to just phone calls and, or drop in, write us a note and we'll give you a call and work something out. So I think, just kind of talking with your staff about how they want to make that work.
Okay. Thank you, Jessica. And then Kathy Tumbliss is asking, what is the average age of your participants?
Yes, well, we don't have a ceiling. The floor is 19. They have to be 19 years old or older. I have a pair of brothers who are 19 and 21 who are working on it. I have a husband and wife team who are just adorable, and he's 65 and she's 62, and they're in the same program and they wait for each other. So one gets finished. It's like a competition. I'll get this one done first, but they don't go on until they're both ready. And they're actually in their 6th data analytics course already. They are setting the world on fire. They'll be the next ones that are finished. Well, they'll be the first data analytics done, and they might be the next ones finished with their classes because they are, but they also both have engineering degrees from other countries, and that might be some impact on their ability to move quickly.
So, okay. And then a question for Joy about the makerspace. What was the name of the place that you got your grants from?
So the one that was a large one was the Kreutz Bennett Donor Advised Fund. However, this was the last year that they distributed funding for projects. And then we also received funding through the Nebraska Department of Economic Development. That is the one from the chamber and the economic development boards of directors that they applied on our behalf for that vinyl cutter and heat press, but it was through the Nebraska Economic Development, something with youth technology, I believe. And then we had, I don't remember all of, we had private donors also, but our makerspace is 100% funded through donations and grants. So it's about $57,000 worth of equipment that has been donated to us. So we did have our Friends of the Library donated some matching funds for one of our grant matching fund requirements. And then our Ravenna Area Visionary Foundation is the one that donated our $16,000 for the laser.
Okay. Well, Thank you. And I think that's all the questions. So Tom, we're gonna move on and we will pick up your question at the end if we have time. So I want to make sure we get through the rest of the material and then we will address those. So, but thank you to those great presentations and questions. So now we're going to move on to our planning grant update. Through ARPA and the Infrastructure and Jobs Act, several broadband programs for states were created and funded, including the NTIA State Digital Equity Planning Grant, the NTIA Broadband Equity Access and Deployment Program, commonly called BEAD, and the U.S. Department of Treasury Capital Projects Fund. And the state of Nebraska is coordinating those programs through the Connect Nebraska Working Group, comprised of staff members from the State Budget Office, the Governor's Policy Research Office, Nebraska Public Service Commission, and the Nebraska Information Technology Commission, Office of the CIO. So today we have several members of the group, so I'm just going to introduce a few of them to you. Patrick Redmond is on. Did you want to say anything, Patrick?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I'm happy to be here, and Anne's doing a great job. And, couldn't be more thrilled that we've got this work group going together. So thank you.
Okay, thank you, Patrick. And then also Colin Robbins and Carrie Gans from the Public Service Commission.
Thanks, Ann. Appreciate the work you're doing here and getting everything started. We are still kind of waiting for the NTIA to approve some of our planning money, and then we'll hope to do some additional coordination with Ann on a bunch of activities, including things like this, learning more about what's going on all over the state. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Ann. This is great information.
So, and then also Stevens Berry from the Governor's Policy Research Office is on. I really would like to thank all of the Connect Nebraska Working Group members for their work. It's a great group, and I'm happy to work with you. And I'm going to move on now to the State Digital Equity Planning Grant. The funding agency for this is the National Telecommunications and Information Administration, or the NTIA. And the state of Nebraska will be receiving approximately $600,000 in funding to create a state digital equity plan. We expect that funding will be awarded sometime this month. So we still have not been funded, so we're just in the very early stages of all this. And the grant will be administered by the Nebraska Information Technology Commission, Office of the CIO. So we are partnering with NROC, the Nebraska Regional Officials Council, and the Nebraska Library Commission. And NROC is made up of the state's economic development districts. And Tom Bliss is on to represent NROC. So if you'd like to say a few words, Tom.
Yeah, thanks, Ann, and thanks everyone for jumping on the call today. I'm really amazed at all the work that the libraries are doing. Cicely, you must be a rock star working with 4 different languages. That's pretty impressive. Just as a quick overview, NROC is the Nebraska Regional Officials Council. We represent the 8 development districts established by state statute. We've been involved with broadband for the past couple of years, everything from a speed test that's parcel level crowdsourced to a broadband 101 series to a broadband summit that's taken place over the past year and a half. Now we're going to be diving into digital equity, and we truly appreciate this opportunity, and we appreciate it, Colin, for including us in this, and we truly look forward to working with everyone as we move forward.
Yeah, well, we certainly appreciate the work of all the economic development districts. So I think it's going to be a great partnership. And then Holly Walt from the Library Commission is also on. She's going to be working on this project also, 0.5 FTE. Did you want to say?
Sorry,
anything?
yep, sure, I do. I'm sorry, I was muted. I just want to say how excited the Library Commission is to be a part of this planning grant, and we're looking forward to contributing and however we can. And I just got to give a rock star thank you to all the libraries that we're able to present today. It doesn't surprise me because I think that the library is the key in many communities to serving all in the community. So thank you.
Okay, thank you, Holly. And we're excited to be working with you and libraries in Nebraska. So the State Digital Equity Planning Grant will guide the development of a state digital equity grant program. So when we have our plan completed in about a year, Nebraska can apply for follow-on funding, and Nebraska will receive a minimum of $7.2 million over 5 years for implementing a state digital equity plan. So that can help us implement our state digital equity plan. So I think that's very exciting, and that could certainly have a tremendous impact for our communities, for our libraries, for our senior centers, for all kinds of organizations in Nebraska. So the grant requires us to cover 8 covered populations, and altogether, the 8 covered populations make up about 75% of Nebraska's population. So this is so much bigger than just focusing on the 10% of Nebraskans that don't have connectivity in their homes. This is really about the majority of Nebraskans, making sure that all Nebraskans have the connectivity, devices, and skills to use to benefit from technology. So we're also going to be emphasizing and trying to promote the use of precision ag technologies and telehealth technologies that really have the potential to impact the lives of Nebraskans. The largest covered population are rural residents, and then the second largest covered population or priority population are those 60 years or over. So that will be, a big focus of our grant. In the introductory materials, I also mentioned how those with low incomes are far more likely to be disconnected. So that will also have to be, a major focus. And we will definitely be focusing on all of those, but I think those are going to be some of the priority areas. So our planning activities will include webinars like today's webinars, listening sessions. We have 3 listening sessions, and I've got a slide on this coming up on older adults, internet use, and telehealth. And in the future, we will probably be scheduling additional listening sessions, possibly on different topics. And at one presentation, one speaker pointed out that having listening sessions in Omaha, Lincoln, and Kearney does not cover the whole state. So we intend to go out to other areas of the state. And if you would like to host a listening session, please contact us. We would love to go out to all areas of the state. We'll be doing an inventory of digital equity assets and best practices. So if you have a great program in your community, please let us know about that, so that we can include that in there. We'll also be working with the Library Commission and utilizing the data that they collect every year from libraries. And the State Unit on Aging has surveyed senior centers across the state. And so we'll be working with them to use their data. And so we don't have to resurvey everybody. We'll be working with the state's economic development districts on the development of regional digital equity plans, and we'll kind of build our state digital equity plan from those regional digital equity plans. And then we'll also be inviting tribal governments that have completed digital equity plans, or any communities that have completed digital equity plans to also share their plans and to participate in the planning process. And we'll bring together those planning efforts at a state planning conference to share their findings and their recommendations, and to start to discuss state recommendations. And we will be coordinating our activities with the BEAD planning activities. So here's information on our upcoming listening sessions on older adults, internet use and telehealth. The first one is Tuesday, October 18th at 1:30 at the Gear Public Library. We also have one scheduled Friday, October 21st at Kearney Public Library at 12:30 p.m. and Wednesday, October 26th at the Millard Branch Library in Omaha. So, and we are working with AARP and NROC on those listening sessions. So I'd invite you, if you're interested, to attend one of those sessions. Lastly, how can you participate? Spread the word about digital equity resources and planning events. Share information on your assets and best practices. Participate or host listening sessions, to participate in the regional planning groups, and submit comments. We'll have a formal 30-day comment period for our plan. So, and certainly at any time you can email me, and I would love to talk to you and share information. And here's my contact information, the contact information for Patrick Redmond, the State Broadband and Infrastructure Coordinator, and for Colin Robbins at the Nebraska Public Service Commission. So looks like we might have time for a question or two. The only question is from Tom Rolfus. How might Nebraska ramp up and replicate the technology classes across the state, like South Sioux City's Public Library and the Center for People in Needs classes? Anybody want to address that one?
Well, I think mostly what we have to do is make sure people have access to the technology. You can't learn stuff online without it. And that's just, I think in Nebraska, it's a process. I mean, how many years did it take to electrify the entire state? My parents both remember growing up on farms without electricity. So it's just going to take time and excuse me, commitment, and just recognizing that broadband is now part of the infrastructure.
Yeah, and I'd like to add that I think assessing the need and what the precise needs are is going to be a big part of that, because as I learned in my community, makerspaces are great, but we also need basic computer and tech classes as well. So just, getting to know the individual spaces and what the need is, a big part of it.
Yeah, especially as more education is delivered online. It just makes things more accessible to everybody, and which also might help economies in other parts of the state as well. If you can't just because you can't get to a college or university doesn't mean you can't bring that to you. Right. And then why can't you work remotely?
Yes.
I would just add to that. Here at DoSpace, we offer about 60 to 70 tech classes per month, and those classes are free. We don't have a restriction on who can be a member of DoSpace. So if you live in California and you want to be a DoSpace member, you can do that. And a lot of our classes are also offered online as well. Kathy, I agree with what you said, about the infrastructure. If classes are offered online, if folks don't have internet access, how can they access those online classes? But for those folks who do have internet access, we offer 60 to 70 classes per month online. And I think that's a big part of it for libraries to make that a part of their curriculum, offering classes online so that folks can have access to them if they're not able to actually drive to that location and attend those classes.
Yeah, I think just to add to all of those, wonderful points is making sure that our library staff have the digital skills as well, so that they feel comfortable providing that kind of, whether it's tech tutoring or, providing access to free classes. It's exciting to hear about those Google classes, Kathy, that you
Mhm.
guys are doing. That's really interesting. So I think awareness is a piece of it too. What's already out there, that we don't have to recreate the wheel, that we can deliver to our community. But then also like making sure that we as librarians have the digital skills that we need too, so that we can help our communities learn. Because I think a lot of it is informal, people that are coming in and saying, oh, I need help to save this on a flash drive, or I need help to print this off, or, so you're doing a lot of digital literacy instruction on a very casual basis.
Mhm.
So having that confidence that we can provide that is helpful too.
And I think sharing amongst each other is a huge part of it as well. Being able to, have these conversations like we're having, and any sort of content we're able to create and share amongst each other is extremely valuable.
Yeah, and I hope that we can facilitate these kinds of conversations. So, Vicki, I see a suggestion from you to have listening sessions in both North and South Omaha. And I agree. I think that would be great. So, if you have suggestions for, who we could contact and to set those up, or if we could work with you, please share that with us, because we definitely would like to set some up in North and South Omaha in the future. So I think that's it. Are there any more? I think there's, I think that's it. So I'd like to thank you all for participating in this webinar, and for our speakers for sharing information on your great programs and answering questions. And I hope that we will continue to reach out to all of you and work with you all. And thank you all for your interest in digital equity and your work to support digital opportunities in Nebraska. So thank you.